Hello and welcome to episode 43 of Intruder Theatre in the Making podcast. I'm your host, Remi Rachuba, and thank you so much for tuning in. Now, the last podcast episode I released in July. It's been, I think, 3 months. I've been quite busy, but I knew that I wanted to record another episode as soon as I can. So this is it today. Now, in the last 3 episodes, I talked about adapting my play into a screenplay, and I talked about various things to do with it, writing the screenplay, sending it, so you can find out more about it in the previous episodes. In this episode and in the next one, I'm coming back to the journey of the play, what's been going on with it, because it's quite a lot of stuff has happened, so I'm just catching up with the theatre journey, and in this episode focusing on producing, so how I produced and what I did as far as the Scottish tour of the play, which I did in March of this year. So maybe it's going to be, the episode is going to be useful and helpful to any writers, performers that would like to do it, don't know how to go about it. I can maybe share some of the things I did and things that worked for me. All info about the play you can always find on the website intruderplay.com and on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, Intruderplay. That's, I think, where I update it regularly. On X, Intruderplay as well, but I just put mainly info on Instagram and Facebook. So let's get into it. So coming back to the theatre journey of the play, as you might remember, for those of you who listen to the podcast for the first time, I premiered my solo play Intruder Intrus at the Fringe in 2022, where it received an extension. Then I toured the play in the UK and abroad. So the final performance of the play was in 2023. I was a little bit tired of touring at that time because I was doing one-off performances, and then I needed a little bit of a break. And towards the end of 2023, I thought, maybe I can look into touring, especially Scotland. Now, why Scotland? I lived in Scotland for 8 years. The play is set in Scotland, Glasgow, Edinburgh. So I thought, I would love to present it over there. And this idea came, as I said, end of 2023. Of course, I had other things going on, but then I thought, why don't I get on with it? And it was around January, February 24, when I thought, okay, why don't I look at various venues in Scotland where I could potentially, contact the venues first and then present it if they want it. Now, time-wise, my tour happened in March 2025, so I had been already thinking of doing the tour a year before. Even now, actually, I'm recording the episode on the 18th of October. I was emailing a couple of venues this week for maybe, another tour, to do another tour, and we were already discussing late 2026, spring 2027. So this is just to give some kind of an idea of how far in advance you can start thinking of the tour. I was thinking a year in advance. I don't think it needs to be that early. But then on the other hand, I think it's better early than late. So how did I go about the venues? How did I identify the venues? So of course, having lived in Scotland, I knew certain venues. I have been in touch with certain venues. Certain venues said no to me. And then, of course, I looked at other places. My very first thing that I did was I went on the website, National Theatre of Scotland website, and I looked at their productions and the venues they toured. They also do a lot of rural touring in small places, communities, which I wanted, and I love it. So I looked at the venues, I googled them, and I had some kind of an idea of where they went and who potentially to contact. As always, and I've been saying it in the podcast, I always go to friends and I ask for help, advice, tips, and I did it as well. So one of the very first venues that I went to was Eden Court in Inverness. I remember when I was at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland in 2009, I actually wrote my MA thesis on the play A Tailor of Inverness, which has Polish themes in it and performed by Matthew Zając-Zaczek, who is a colleague of mine. I remember that they put it on, so I thought, okay, well, potentially if they put it on, there must be a big Polish audience community over there. Hence, I went to the theatre. So I often look at venues, well, because my play is Polish-English, so I look at venues that may have Polish communities. I knew A Tailor of Inverness was presented in Inverness, so I thought, okay, well, surely they might be interested in it. I emailed them, and maybe that's another thing I can talk about, what I emailed and who I emailed. So normally I would look at the theatre's website, a contact section, and there would be for example, programming person, a programmer, and I would email them, or I would email info or artistic director, and they would forward my email to the person who does programming. What do I write in my email? In the email, normally my subject line is programming query, and then in the email I just ask, well, I email them with a question. I give them info about the play succinctly, what's been going on with the play, where I premiered it, awards, shortlists, bullet points, and then a question at the end, whether they would be interested in receiving a tour pack. And a tour pack is a concise document, like a file, PDF, which has info about the play, themes, suitability for audiences, awards, more info about funding, contact information, creatives who worked on the play, and also a link to the recording, which I have from Summer Hall. It has maybe 3 or 4 pages. But as I said, very concise, like a maybe longer version of the email. And in the email I also have the link to the website, and this is really what I sent, and I've been sending it this week, as I said, because I've been contacting venues in various places. So it's the same kind of template, and I sent that email 2024, I think it was beginning February, Eden Court. They replied to me, and then we started having a conversation because they were very interested in the play, which was great. And after, I think, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, the communication stopped, and I didn't really know what was going on. I was sending up follow-up emails. Nothing happened after that, and I then literally emailed the person who I was communicating with, and I said, am I being ghosted? To which the person replied, and they said, we're sorry about lack of communication, but then turned out that they were working on a new writing festival. This new writing is very vibrant in Edincourt, which made sense. But then we continued our conversation later on, and then we set up a Zoom call with one member of the team, and then I had another Zoom, I think with the programmer and with Susie, the producer, at Edincourt. So I knew, well, that was bound to happen, my presentation, because they were very, very interested in the play and its themes, and we already at that time penciled in a date, and that was March 2025. So it was a year before when we were penciling the date for performance. I remember it was interesting because I was thinking, wow, I already know what's going to happen in a year's time, where I'm going to be on this particular day. But from a theatre point of view, it's important to do that, because one could be thinking, why does it need to be so early? Well, they need to do programming, they need to put things in the brochures online, and even then, a year in advance, they already had a couple of productions in their diary. So I was not the only production. No. So if anyone is planning a tour, or thinking of contacting a theatre to do a potential tour, think ahead, maybe a year, because their diaries are filling up fast. So then in February 24, we had penciled in a date for my performance in March, which was great. That was great. It was all the way in the north, and then it was up to me which other venues I could potentially approach and contact to do, who would be interested in presenting my play. And then I remember before the Zoom with Susie, the producer, I emailed Susie and I said that if she had any other ideas who else I could contact, I would be very, very grateful for the information. And then during the Zoom, Susie told me what other theatres I could contact. And once again, I would always encourage anyone to go to people that you know, because it would be them who would help you, who would support you, who would potentially put a good word for you. And that's what happened. Susie gave me info on other venues, which I didn't. Some of the venues I've never heard of. And then I emailed them. The other colleague that I went to was Ben Harrison, a director from Edinburgh, who also gave me ideas of other venues. For example, Lythe Arts Centre in Wick, which was amazing when I didn't even know that the venue existed. And in the end, I went over there. So I would often say, go to the venues, go to the people that you know who could help you, support you, and they would signpost you to other places. And then from that moment on, when I had Edincourt under my belt, so to speak, although I didn't sign a contract yet, but we were going in that direction, I then went to other venues and I told them that, I've already had a conversation with Edincourt. This is the date. and then maybe we can work around it. And I think it's great to always mention a particular theatre, because if others see that this particular theatre has agreed to program you, I think they would be more willing to program your play as well. So please don't forget that. And then I was contacting, as I said, other venues. Another venue came on board, and that was Eastgate in Peebles, big Polish community there. And then, and that performance would be before my performance in Inverness. So I was planning things out, like, okay, I'm just going to go to Peebles in the Scottish borders, potentially then Edinburgh, Inverness, and then going down to Glasgow. So it was like east up west, because at that time it was March, April. I wasn't sure which venues I would be performing in. Now, the venues came, all the venues that in the end ended up performing in, they didn't take a month. It took, I think, 3 or 4 months. It wasn't that straightforward, but with Inverness, with Court, and then with Peebles, I had a rough idea what I wanted and when I wanted to perform, because I really wanted to look at, for example, the same area and perform it there rather than just going places here and there. So that was Peebles and Inverness. There was something else. Okay, so another idea came, and that was Ben, who suggested that maybe I could go back to Summerhall, which I never thought about. I thought, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I premiered my play at Summerhall in 2022, and then Ben said, well, why don't you go to them? Surely they would be very interested in, maybe doing a one-off performance. It would be a great thing to platform your tour, which I thought, yeah, makes sense. Again, going back to what I was thinking before, go to people that supported you before. They will be happy to support you again. I was in touch with Summerhall. As I said, it was around April. They were preparing for the Fringe, but we were to resume our conversation after the Fringe in 2024. So then more venues came on board. Lythe Art Centre in Wick, then it was Oban. I heard great things about them, and as I said, when I was doing research, their venue kept popping up. And in Glasgow, not a lot of theatres were interested in not a lot of venues. The Tron said no, so I went to other venues in Greenock, Beacon Art Centre, and then Cumbernauld also was another venue. It's interesting with Glasgow because that's where the play is set. When I was approaching both venues, I didn't know even it made any difference. Greenock and Cumbernauld venues in completely different places, quite far away, but also the venues were telling me that, we don't want to be presenting the play and, for example, you're doing a performance at another venue which is 5 minutes from us, which I didn't know. Well, that was a thing, but it was a thing. So maybe, I don't know, different venues, different expectations, but I think it's all negotiable. And when you email people and tell them about, this and that, they can say, yeah, that's fine, not a problem. But I remember I was discussing a potential presentation at a different venue, and they were like, that venue is too close to us. Yeah. In the end, I ended up performing at the Beacon Art Centre and Cumbernauld, which was great. So I had a little bit of a tour already prepared, all the dates penciled in, and then interesting, you get to know various people. At Camber Nord Theatre, I was speaking to Fraser, and on the Zoom he said, what, it's the last play that I'm programming at the Camber Nord Theatre because I'm actually moving to Eastgate in Peebles. And I said, oh wow, I'm already programmed over there. So I knew that I would bump into Fraser in Peebles at some point, and I did when I did my performance there in March 2025. So that's really basically it with the venues. I'm just checking on the time, how much time. Wow, this episode could be a little bit of a longer one, to be quite honest. So venues, contact, and of course you discuss it with the venues, the dates, what would work for you. And we're also talking about time and how much time you would have, where you would go and where you would sleep. The way I wanted it to happen was that I wanted to do one performance, then one day for travel, then another performance, one day for travel, and then it kind of naturally worked out that the second part of the tour was more relaxed, meaning that I had maybe 2 or 3 days to rest, and then I would have a performance, not like the beginning of the tour when I was at one theatre and then the next day I was traveling and then another performance. That was the beginning, and then in hindsight I think that for some reason it must have worked this way, because the beginning, doing it at the very beginning was fine, but then in the long run I'm glad that it worked this way, because I was just very, very tired from performing and from traveling. So always bear in mind that you as a performer, because I was there on my own, there was nobody else, you need to look after yourself and get arrested for any performances coming up. So that was the venues, that was the travel. The tour was 3 weeks, and another thing I wanted to discuss was potentially financial deals. Most of the venues would go for a box office split, and what that is, that they would go, okay, how do we want to do it? Do you want to do 50-50 or 70-30? So 70-30 would be, let's say 70% of the box office takings go to the performer, and 30 is kept by the theatre. And most, if not all, the theatres offered me that deal. Sometimes the theatre can offer you a deal of, for example, a fee. They can say, you know what, this is a fee, £600, and that's it, which is great. But in the current climate, well, they can't afford it. That's what I think, and they offer you 70-30 or 60-40, and that was my thing with the venues. And for that, they give you, they provide you with marketing help, marketing the show, 1 or 2 technicians that are with you on the day of your rehearsal. So it worked for me. As I was saying before, I am the only person traveling. I don't have a producer. I produce my own show, so I do everything, social media, producing, and I prefer it this way, because if I had a producer, I would need to pay them for the work, and I'd rather pay myself. I know my show, I know what to do, I know, I have all the posters, quotes, I run social media, so it's easier for me rather than telling someone to do it. And if the theatres come to me, I immediately know what to do, where it is, how to access it. And really, when I had all the venues, so I had Peebles, then Eastgate, then it was Eden Court, Light Arts Centre, Oban, Greenock, and Cumbernauld. I was communicating with the venues directly. I'm going to talk about 2 other venues, well, one more venue that came on board a little bit later on. But when I had all the venues, what I did was there were so many people involved in the tour, people that deal with social media, people that do technicians, they want info, tech rider, or the technical info about the play. But mainly I was communicating with marketing folk, and what I did was I prepared a special marketing deck on Gmail Drive, and if there was anything that they needed, I emailed them and I said, please forgive me, I hope you don't mind, I produced the show, and it saves me loads of time, so if I have one poster or something going live, or I'm putting it on social media, I hope you don't mind if I BCC you or CC you, all of you, because it's just a general piece of information, and I want to share it with you rather than emailing people individually. And people didn't mind that. I think it worked for me, and I created a special marketing deck for the theatres to have, so they could access all the information, all the posters with quotes, maybe some reels, recordings. They were on the drive, so it was easy for the theatres to access them, and that was also easy for me. And of course, I was producing the show, I was doing other things, as always. I interpret, that's my regular job. I was at that time 2024 doing an opera, so yeah, I was busy with that, also dealing with the film script and sending it through. But between the whole process of maybe securing the venues, as I said, from March until August. In August I had all the venues. Maybe one more venue came about. I'm going to talk about it in a second. But yeah, everything was kind of locked. The dates June 2024 for my presentation tour in March 2025. But as I said, the contact was made quite earlier with the venues. Now, around September, one other venue came about. Now, as you might remember, I took part in an animation, a bear named Wojtek, about this bear in Edinburgh, and I did a voiceover for it, which was an incredible journey. The success the short film achieved was just crazy. It was on an Oscar shortlist beyond belief. I never saw that coming. And also another thing which some of the venues agreed to do, now I just remembered that, was that we were discussing that when I go to certain venues, for example Eden Court, we can do a screening of the short film, the animation, and then on the same day of my performance, before my performance, and I can go tell people about the short film, introduce the film, and then also invite them to come to my performance, which was great. And Eden Court agreed to do that, which was great. And another venue, and that was Perth Theatre. Was it? I think so. Perth Theatre. Perth Theatre didn't. I'm sorry. I thought it would be a nice segue for this story. It was No, it was Eden Court and Cumbernauld. But what happened in Perth was with Perth Theatre. So I didn't have that venue in mind when I was thinking of the tour. In September 24, Wojtek was getting a screening here in London at the Polish Heart Club, and the director Ian, I think we were texting, and I was to go to the presentation as always to support the film. And then Ian, the director, texted and said, "Oh, Remi, they're doing some, I think, dinner before the presentation. We would love you to join. Would you be free?" And I just live around the corner, so I said yes. And it was then I said, "Oh, you know what? I've been reading amazing things about the film on Instagram. It's been great, getting great feedback, people loving the film." And then Ian, I think, said, "Oh yes, we were just recently in Perth." And I thought, Perth? And he said, yes, there was a big Polish community. And as soon as he said big Polish community, I thought, wow, maybe it's another venue where I can present my solo play. Because I had a little bit of a time between my performances in Peebles and Inverness. So after we finished talking, I googled Perth Theatre, couldn't find the programmer. I found them. They gave me the email address for the programmer. I emailed them with my offer, and then I think 25 minutes after my email, half an hour max, I got an email back saying, "Remi, when can you come for a coffee?" And I joked and I said, well, maybe we can do like a Zoom coffee or something like that, because I'm in London. But immediately I knew that they wanted it because, well, they replied right away. And I think, again, as I said in previous podcast episodes, when someone replies right away to, for example, an offer to read or an offer to present a play, that means they're in. They want it. Because it's that instinct connection. And from that moment on, Perth was on my books. The date for the performance was penciled in. And that's how Perth Theatre was another venue that I added. In the end, as far as Summer Hall, I went to them and asked about a potential presentation. However, they were going through some financial problems. I don't want to go into it. After the Fringe, and then we needed to park my idea of presenting the play there. So we parked that idea, and and I think the team changed, and so in the end, I didn't perform at Summer Hall in Edinburgh, but I had quite a busy schedule because I had 6 or 7 venues. 7: Peebles, Perth, Inverness, Wick, Oban, Greenock, Cumbernauld, and the tour was for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Now, as I said in the earlier episodes, I keep saying what I said before, but it's very interesting because a lot of things repeat. So I repeat the things that worked for me, and I often think if something worked, just keep doing it. And be open to other ideas. My tour in March 2025 was self-funded. I didn't get any funding for the tour. I got some funding in 2020, but it wasn't for a Scottish tour. It was for a tour in England. Of course, then the pandemic happened, so things got complicated. But the tour, the 3-week tour in Scotland, was self-funded. Now, someone may be asking me, Remi, how did you do it? Where did you get the money from? And maybe I can talk about the financial side of things a little bit later on, and how I went about it. Because of course I needed to book travel and accommodation and things like that. But I always believe that everything will be fine and everything will work out fine, and so far it's worked out fine, so I don't worry about things too much. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's not good, but I don't try to think negatively, oh, this is not going to work. No, it will work, it will be fine, it's going to be fine. And so far it's worked in my favor. So, as I said, September 24, quite a lot of things were set in place, dates, no travel, no accommodation yet, but it's for a reason at that time. And then what I was doing, well, I knew that around the summer of 24, I was invited to present my solo play in Lithuania, Vilnius. There was a festival, Festiwal Monospektakli, solo performances only. Various Polish artists from around the world go to Vilnius and present their work, and I was invited to go over there. I have heard of the festival before. I really wanted to go there, and they invited me, and that was great. I was very happy. I would be going over there for about a week, so I flew on the Tuesday and I came on a Sunday, and it's the very first theatre festival that I was invited to, and and I was there nearly for the entire week. Now, of course, before my performance at the festival, I needed to go back into rehearsals. Now, my performance in Lithuania was to be in Polish. I hadn't, by that time, performed a Polish version of the play for about 2 years, so I really needed to refresh the text. The last Polish language performance was here in London at POSC in November 2022. So I went back into rehearsals around October. Again, Theatre Delhi, for some physical rehearsals, and as always, Hyde Park for my line learning. Sorry about that. Line learning. A month before my performance. Now, of course, when I go to Theatre Delhi, I need to rent the rehearsal studio, and how do I pay for it? So I did a crowdfunder. You may remember, you may not, for my play in 2020, where I raised more than £8,000, and I had a couple of companies that supported me, and I went back to the company, to a solicitor, and asked them if they would be kind enough to cover the cost of the rental space, and they said yes, and I didn't need to pay for that, which was great. So that was one of the that's one of the sponsors for the play. And of course, it's I think, and this is what I've always been saying to the sponsors, and even on the podcast, that whoever supported me at some stage, they're always part of the project. So I always put the company's logo on the poster. They're there, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am, and I'm very grateful for that. I don't ask for help quite often, maybe once every 3 years, something like that, but I knew that the tour was coming, or my presentation in Lithuania was coming, so I asked for help, and they helped me, and I could pay for rental room cost, which was great. And I went to Vilnius. I stayed at the Dom Polski, which is this amazing, I don't even know what you call it, a hotel, a complex, because it's a brand new hotel. There is, I think, 2 theater venues, or 2 at least performance spaces, huge. There was a restaurant, 1 or maybe even 2. No, it's amazing. I was really, really impressed. It was very, very interesting to meet other artists from Poland and Polish artists who live abroad and exchange opinions, points of view. The venue where I was performing, the theatre, was huge. One of the biggest venues I've ever performed at, really. My performance was on Friday. My parents came. I had great technicians. It was just mainly going over there and then going to the venue and making sure that I feel comfortable in the space, although it was a huge space. Going to a theatre festival was interesting because there were so many different events and you want to do some sightseeing, so it's kind of balancing things out. But lovely people, very generous, and just, I think it's great to go and present your art, really. So I was really grateful for that opportunity. One thing that happened that kind of was, I was quite shocked, to be quite honest, that things like that happen. Maybe I can give an example. So when I was there, prior to my arrival in Lithuania, I had been in touch with a person who helps the organizers of the festival, like their assistant, let's say. And the person was contacting me on mainly Facebook Messenger. There's no emails, Facebook Messenger, which is quite new to me because I'm always used to having emails, not sending messages on Facebook Messenger. But if that's how they do it, it's fine. I'm open to this idea. And then before my presentation, my performance on Friday, I had seen the assistant. We had chats about the performance, but maybe not about a little bit about the performance, but in general about the festival. Now, the event, the festival in Vilnius, is highly publicized, so a lot of media, Polish TV, and there was a very lovely gentleman, journalist, Richard, that came to me a day before my performance and said, you know what, we would like to do a little bit of a feature about you and your play. When is suitable for us to come and do an interview with you? And I said, you know what, maybe Friday before my performance, 6 p.m. And they said, fine, that's okay. But it was nice that they asked about it, and we arranged it so that I can plan my Friday, my rehearsal day and the performance. So then on Friday, I did my technical rehearsal, and then 6 o'clock, Richard came with the cameraman. We had a very short interview, and then 5 minutes, they wanted me to do something for them. They filmed it. 10 minutes, we were done, fine. So I'm getting ready for my performance, and then I only saw that later, or I saw that, I don't remember that message earlier. Anyway, so I did my tag, I am about to go into my dressing room after my rehearsal. It's about 10 minutes before my performance. And then, of course, I look at the message later on in hindsight. 10 minutes before my performance, I get a message on my Facebook Messenger from the assistant saying that they would like to record my performance. Okay, right. Now I go into the performance. It's a huge room. Everyone comes to the front, but the assistant, goes to the very end of the room, which is kind of like, okay, why are they over there? Why are they only? Well, they want to, maybe that's where they want to sit. But then I knew why they went over there. Well, because in the end, what happened was that they, I guess, were recording the performance. So I hadn't said a single thing about the recording. I wasn't sure whether that was happening. I wasn't aware of it. The performance takes place. Of course, after the performance, people come, and my parents were there, and you need to get out of the dressing room, and then you meet people, you go for a drink, things like that, which was great. So the following morning, I look at the message, and it was about the recording, and I replied to the person, and I said, all right, okay, well, thank you so very much, but can I actually see this recording? And the person said to me, it's already on YouTube. So then I went for breakfast, and I bumped into the person, and I said, can we have a conversation? And I said, thank you so much for the messages, but you know what, I really didn't see the messages, and I didn't really agree to the recording. So maybe in the future, if anything like that happens, if you could let me know. And the person took it very personally, and they started shouting at me, and that was actually in the canteen, like, oh, why are you patronizing me? What do you why I said, no, I'm sorry, we're just having a conversation. No, we're not having a conversation about it. You're telling me what? Yeah, it is. We are here together. I'm here at the festival. You are. This is what I was thinking. You are one of the organizers, so it is a little bit uncomfortable for me to record me without, me agreeing to do so. And the person was so angry that they started shouting, and they left in the middle of the conversation. People came to me after that, like, oh, what happened? And it was actually quite embarrassing to do, to have this conversation in front of other people, especially as I was so excited after the performance. Yeah, it was one of these things. And then what happened was, I think the person took it down from YouTube, and then they wrote me a message on Messenger that my performance was crap, it was amateur, it was not good. Wow. I actually made a complaint to the organizers. I emailed them and I said, this is what happened, so please be aware of it. Maybe you can do something about it. I'm not sure whether anything's been done about it, but it's not been a great experience from the organizers, the assistant's point of view, because I think things like that really shouldn't happen. However, on a very positive note, after the performance, I don't know whether that was that evening or the following day, I got an amazing message from a very lovely woman who came to my performance, and she said to me that she wasn't planning to come. She just saw a poster, and she was interested in watching the play, and she was so impressed with the play and the way it was done. She said that it was more than a performance, it was something different, and a lot of young people should experience that. It was an incredible message, and it was also written in Polish English, like my play, which was great. And that was it was a wonderful thing to receive, because I think if I or any artist can touch someone, and it's even one person, I very often think I've done my job of maybe making someone think, of someone moving someone, or doing something, or experiencing something, or making them think of something. And I'm very, very grateful for that. I don't even know what to say now about it, but it was a wonderful message to receive. And when I when I came from Vilnius, as I said, great experience, meeting people, experiencing other artists, work, and what they do and how they do it. I then I needed to do one other thing. So as I was saying before, coming back to the funding side of things, I know there is an institute in Poland, Mickiewicz Institute, that supports artists, Polish artists that present the work abroad. So coming back to the funding side of things, God, I keep repeating the same thing. If you can identify maybe some organizations, if you are an international artist, I don't know, maybe living in the UK or somewhere else, maybe you can go to your embassy, maybe you can go to an institute, if there is one, to ask for some financial help to do something. Because Polish Mickiewicz Institute gives money, as I said, to artists going abroad, and they can give money for travel, accommodation, and I've known of them. I had applied to them to cover the flight from London to Vilnius. However, my application was not successful. However, I knew, okay, now I need to try again to potentially get some funding for my tour in Scotland. The dates for applications changed with the institute, so it was, I think, before that they only had like a month window where you could apply, and then they must have changed something, because last November you could apply for a project that was taking place in 3, 4, 5 months. So when I came back from Lithuania, I filled in an application form. I put all the dates, all the theatres. I even went to the theatres, I emailed them, and I asked for a letter of recommendation from each theatre, and literally everyone emailed me right away, which was great. And its letter of recommendation is a great evidence of support. So I put it in, and then I submitted my application to cover me the cost of accommodation and travel. Now, the thing with this institute is that if you buy something before their decision, they're not going to reimburse it. They can only reimburse it the cost after the decision is made. So everything needs to be booked after they make a decision. So I was kind of chancing it. It could have gone both ways. I could have not received it, and then I would need to have paid for travel out of my own pocket. And if I had done it earlier, then I would have had to pay less, but I believed that I would get the money, and I did in the end. Another good thing about the institute is that once you apply, they make a decision within 5 days. They don't inform you that you need to check online that you got the funding. So my blood pressure went high when the decision was made on the day. I was like, oh my god, I need to go and check, and it was there. And yes, I got the money, not a lot, because I only got half of the money that I wanted. I received £500, but still, to have £500 and not to have it was a big thing. But also I learned that when I got the money, not physically, because you get the money after the whole activity, so you kind of spend the money first on the travel and accommodation, then they give it back to you after the whole activity. So after the tour, once you write a report, that's how it works with financial institutions. So you kind of pay for things up front. When I was booking all the travel and accommodation, I realized how cheap, when you really dig deep, how cheap things are. For example, Flixbus, amazing company, traveling from Perth to Inverness for £4 by bus. Crazy. And I used Flixbus twice. Train was more expensive, but there would be a website here, Theatre Digs Booker, for theatre professionals who want to go on tour and, who want to sleep elsewhere. Amazing accommodation in Edinburgh for £20 a night. In the city centre. That's unheard of. So all of a sudden it turned out that £500 was enough for me to actually to cover my expenses, most of my expenses, travel expenses and accommodation expenses for 3 weeks in Scotland. It was a little bit different when I was in Glasgow because I was staying with very good friends of mine. So potentially if I didn't stay with them, I would have had to pay for it. But it was very, very helpful. So that was another source of funding for me for the tour. So I didn't, of course, I need to pay a little bit of money from my own pocket, but it's always treated as an expense, which you can, as when you're self-employed, you can always claim it and deduct it. So that was very helpful. And the final thing about the tour that I needed to do was posters. Some venues. Not some venues, all the venues wanted posters. It's not all on social media, and I agree with it. Seeing your poster at the venue is very powerful. Social media is one thing, but when you go to a venue and you see an amazing poster, and I think Intruder's poster by Cindy Derby is amazing, and when you look at it, it looks great. It's so powerful. I think it's incredible. So of course you understand that they want it, and it's great to have it, but of course there was a cost involved with it. The way I did it was I didn't have one poster for each venue. I said to the venues, please forgive me, I'm just going to have one poster with all the dates in all various venues, because I also think that maybe if you see a venue, this is going to Edinburgh or this is going to Glasgow, I can tell friends who live over there, otherwise I only see on the post the venue where I am. So I spent the entire day literally sending the poster, going online. There was I think I use a website, Vistaprint. If I'm not, I may be wrong. And it's there, and then I ask them to send the poster to like A4 posters, 10 A4 posters to this venue, A3, I don't know, 50. I always find it very confusing with these names, A3, A2, A4. I never know which one is which one. And then it took me the whole day, literally sending it through, not me sending it, but going through which venue, how many, what they wanted, whether this would be enough, or maybe emailing them, or is it okay if you get this or that, or leaflets. And I sent it I went away for Christmas. Again, one of the other companies that helped me with the crowdfunder, they paid for the cost of the print, which was I think £250. So I didn't have to pay for that. So a lot of companies that helped me before, they helped me with a lot of costs. Some organizations, for example, went to the Polish Cultural Institute here in London. I just remembered that they existed, but they said to me, sorry Remi, we already have a budget for 2025, we wouldn't be able to support you. I understand it to one extent, that they've got a budget, but on the other hand, I don't understand it, because I wouldn't be asking for loads of money. I maybe would be asking for £200 to help me, for example, with the print or with the rental space cost. I'm glad that I had these companies that I could turn to. But yeah, a Polish Cultural Institute, I've been in touch with them, and potentially when I can do another tour, I can go to them again and ask them for help. But last year they said to me that their budget was closed and they wouldn't be able to help me with anything. So that's really what it was. I'm just thinking what else I could talk about. So if you have people or organizations that you could turn to, go to them and they can chip in or help you for a particular thing that you need, for example, print or space. And I think if people supported you before, they will do that. Keep repeating it, because it's like mantra. I think after this episode you can go, okay, well, if someone supported me, they will do that again. And the end of December, I went away. I really wanted to have all the posters sorted, and they received it before Christmas. Of course, it's panto season, so I didn't really mind having the posters being put on in January, because it's panto season, it's Christmas season, so it makes sense, and nobody would even pay attention to that. But I really wanted to have it done before I go on holiday. I always have this thing that have a deadline, do it by then, and then other things, you will focus on other things. And if you can do it by the time you go away, do it, so that you don't have to worry about that when you come back from a longer break, and Christmas is a longer break. Other thing that I was looking into was, for example, social media sponsored ads, but that I wasn't worrying about it at that time. I knew potentially that I would be looking into it before the tour, so that would be maybe January, February, especially as just closer, maybe, I was looking into doing it a little bit closer to when the tour was about to happen. I didn't want to do it 3 or 4 months before. Of course, the theatres, and we were promoting the play on social media, but not heavily, because I also think that, from experience, and when I did certain runs here in London, and when I spoke to various social media people from theatres, it's always good to do it before the tour, couple of weeks rather than couple of months. And that was, I think, everything. That's everything about producing my tour and what to do next, regarding step by step. But I think most of the admin was done in 2024. Then it was just me going into rehearsals again and then going on tour, and I will talk about the tour in the next podcast episode, and maybe telling you about my experiences, what happened, because a lot of exciting things happened, or what various stories, also shooting my very short sketch comedy series, The Dressing Room Season 2, based on my tour. So a lot of exciting things to look forward to in the next podcast episode. Wow, this has been the longest podcast episode I think I recorded. It's an hour and 10 minutes, 6 minutes with music, and still a couple of minutes to go. It's going to be an hour and 10 minutes, but hopefully it's been helpful to anyone, writers, performers, producers, to get some insight into how I went about the tour. And this is really what I'm doing at the moment, also contacting venues in various places abroad and looking into maybe potential presentation of the solo play in 2026-2027. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time. And always stay safe, stay well, and I'll speak to you next time. Again, another repetition. Bye for now.